So friends, right here we have Ron Strauss. Ron was the co-pilot of the Lisa Marie and of the Hound Dog 2, which would have been the Convair 880 and the Convair 770. Tell us about your time there. How long were you with Elvis? How long did you fly?
1975, 76, 77, right up till he died.
Really?
Yeah.
And so I think those airplanes were pretty much, before that, I think he mostly leased airplanes. I don't think he bought airplanes, or he had other pilots where he would lease it and they would provide a pilot.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about the red airplane. We'll go ahead and get that out of the way, because that's such a myth. There's this red airplane that keeps popping up in all these stories that this was Elvis's airplane sitting out on the tarmac somewhere, and it's so valuable, but nobody seems to buy it. Have you ever seen that airplane in your life? Okay. And it appears to be a Jetstar, like the Hound Dog 2. But you've never seen that airplane, never flown on it? Okay. And you were Elvis's pilot basically the whole time that he owned airplanes, in my opinion, right? And I'll confirm that, but I think that's correct. Yeah. So you flew the Lisa Marie. What was that like? It
was a blast. I got a lot of Convair 880, 880M, and 990 times, so I really liked the Convair.
And you flew in the military. You were in Vietnam.
I was a flight engineer in the Air Force.
Tell us about that. Tell us about your Vietnam time.
Well, I flew from mid-66 to January 70 and on a C-141A. And basically all we did is fly from Travis Air Force Base in California via Hawaii, Awake, and then Philippines, in-country, Southeast Asia, then up to Yokota, and then back to Travis.
So you would evacuate patients and...
Sometimes the airplane could be converted to either carry passengers, freight, or evac on people.
How many flights or flight time?
3,500 hours.
3,500 hours. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service on that, Ron. That's incredible, man.
Pleasure.
You're an American hero, my friend.
No.
I appreciate that. And heroes don't think they are heroes, so that's awesome. So there's all kinds of stories that I want to talk about. But let's talk about the first time you met Elvis.
Well, I interviewed and got hired by the Presley Enterprise, but it was only interviewing with Vernon Presley, his father. And when we got the airplane all certified in Nashville, then we brought it to Memphis, and we thought we'd meet Elvis that day. But that day, the next day, and nothing, no Elvis. And then the third day, Joe Esposito called us and said, "Come on out. Elvis wants to see the airplane and meet you."
I'll come back.
So then we were all in the cockpit looking out the window to see if it was really Elvis, and it was. And then the three of us, the two pilots and then the flight engineer, he was sitting on the back of one of the chairs. And Elvis came in, they were sitting there, and I came in, and he had a great big smile on his face, and he says, "Well, I guess you know who I am." And I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Presley." And he said, "No, none of this yes, sir, and Mr. Presley. It's Elvis, and may I call you Ron?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "I told you, no yes, sir stuff." And that's the way it was. He just made us feel completely relaxed.
That is awesome. So was Elvis ever in the cockpit with you?
He just about, not after the shows that he put on, because he was really exhausted, but he would always come in and say hi at least, and then go in the back. He and Linda Thompson, they would always come to the cockpit just about every flight, say hi, do you need anything? And it was really pretty interesting.
So he would sit up there with you sometime when you were taking off?
Sometimes he would, yeah. He would just sit in the jump seat and takeoff and landings, and he just wanted to view the area.
And you offered him to control the airplane at times. Yeah. And he never took you up on that.
No, we were cruising along, and it was VFR, and we weren't busy. And I asked Elvis, I said, "Hey, you want to fly? Take my seat." No, he says, "That's what I hire you guys for." He said, "I'll do the entertaining, you do the flying." And that's the way it was. Although he did talk on the mic one day because ATC asked us to say, "Is that really Elvis's airplane?" I said, "Yeah." And fortunately, Elvis was right in the cockpit. So I said, "You want to talk to him?" And gave the mic to Elvis, and he said, "Hey, how you guys doing?" and all that stuff. And they were real excited over that. So,
that is really cool.
Yeah.
And everywhere you went, there was excitement.
yeah.
And you got to stay, now when y'all were on tour and stuff, so let's explore this for a moment. When you were on tour, of course, you fly. Your job is to get Elvis there and get Elvis back. What did you do in between?
Well, every day we went out, if we were going to be there 3 or 4 days or whatever it may be. Like in Las Vegas, we were there for 2 weeks at a time. We'd go out every day and pre-flight the airplane because you never knew when he would call. And so we did that, and then when we were in the wintertime, we'd go out to Palm Springs a lot. And he would do a 2-week tour, and then we'd spend 2 weeks out there and then go back on tour. And the engineer and I just played tennis after we pre-flighted every day. So that's what we did.
That's a pretty good gig.
It was.
And so let's talk about let's talk about your flight log. Let's talk about that. And so, friends, he has a flight log right here. And this flight log is every single flight that he flew co-pilot on.
There it is.
And this is every single one of them.
Well,
every date.
This is the other flights too.
Right, and at the end, after the end, this was other flights. But this is every single flight that you flew on the 770 and 880 for Elvis, with the exception of one flight at the very end. But we won't talk about that flight now. We'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah.
And so we've actually looked through this book, and we found, I've found some things that I think are very interesting, that are just little, it's things that I know about, stories that I know about, and then I look at it and go, wait a minute, this is incredible. Here you have a record of the date that this flight happened, and those kinds of things. So you have I'll bring up one of them. There's always a story of Elvis in January of '77 going to Nashville. He's supposed to be recording at Buzz Cason's studio called Creative Workshop. And in your flight log, it says something to the effect of Elvis supposed to tape and never happened, or something of that nature. And you show in your flight log 3 days, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then a flight back. Do you have any recollection of that day, or why you wrote that? How did you know that he didn't tape?
You know, I don't remember.
and that's a fair assessment. That was a long time ago. Yeah. But that has always been a story. It's corroborated by your book, and friends, he's been nice enough to share the contents of this book with us, so we can look at dates and that kind of stuff. So it's going to help us unravel a lot of stories time-wise. So we could say, yeah, he was here, he was there, he was here, he was there. There's a story that you told. Let's talk about the famous Fool's Gold sandwich story. You were there. You flew to Denver. So tell us about that.
Well, it was pretty interesting. It was Lisa Marie's, I don't know, 7th, 8th birthday or something like that. And Elvis wanted to take her to Denver and get these sandwiches and then continue on to Long Beach and drop her off and then return to Memphis. And we went to Denver and we got these peanut butter bacon sandwiches, or Fool Golds, or Gold Fool, whatever.
Fool's Gold, yeah.
They were $28 and they were about that big. And I just took a couple bites and they were just too rich for me. But anyway, then we had a birthday cake and we sang Happy Birthday. And I bet you can't guess who the lead singer was on that. But anyway, then after that was over, we were going to go to Long Beach, and we invited Elvis in the cockpit, and we told him that the weather was 0-0 in the whole area, Long Beach and L.A., and so...
So y'all generally flew into Long Beach instead of LAX?
Well, we both flew into both, but they liked to go into Long Beach because it wasn't as busy and it was easy access in and out of the airplane. But anyway, we told him the weather was 0-0, and we could go and hold, but nobody was getting in. So it was going to be the next morning, maybe after the sun burnt the fog off, that we could possibly get in. And I said, you know, diverting with you in this airplane without pre-arrangements is a real pain in the tail. And he says, all right. So he had security take Lisa to the hotel, and then they were going to catch an airliner in.
Which would have been Dick Grove.
I think it was Dick.
Yeah.
And then we figured we'd just go back to Memphis. And then Elvis says, well, wait a minute, let me go back talk to some friends. So he came back talking, and he says, go to Louisiana, either Baton Rouge or Shreveport, I can't remember which. And I said, okay. So off we went. And Elvis was in his sort of like a jumpsuit, pajama type deal, in the jump seat, and it was just at daybreak. And we land there, and we had no idea where to get fuel or anything. So I asked the tower, I says, hey, is there any chance that you know where we can get some fuel? And he said, well, try that Texaco down over there to the FBO. I said, okay. So we did, and fortunately, they got the stairs up to the airplane and everything. And this young manager comes out, he's probably maybe 30 years old, and he says, and Elvis is standing, he walked right by Elvis, and didn't even see him. And he says, well, how much fuel, or what do you guys want? And I said, well, we want fuel. And he said, well, how much do you want? I said, about 5,000 gallons. And he said, well, who the heck's going to pay for that? I said, that guy right there. And Elvis Presley, geez, he shook his hand, you know, and he got all excited. He says, my wife is in love with you. And he says, if she comes out here, can you meet her? Oh, yeah, no problem at all. So we told the manager, said, now look, you better hustle, or she better hustle, because we can only drag our feet so much. And so now, can you imagine this? And she was a very attractive young lady. She gets this call at 6 a.m. and she says, or he tells her, you can meet Elvis if you get out here. You better hurry up. Now, do you put your makeup on or do you not? And evidently, she decided to put her makeup on because it was. We just kept dragging our feet, and then pretty soon, I think it was one of the security guards came up and he said, "Do we have a problem?" And we said, "Well, no, but it's going to take a little bit of time." And he said, well, Elvis is getting pretty impatient. He wants to go back to Memphis. And so we buttoned everything up. And just as we started, we started all the engines, just gotten ready to taxi. And here she comes, stop, stop, stop. You know, well, it was too late. We couldn't stop. So there you go. That's the peanut butter and jelly story.
That poor girl.
Yeah. I bet she wished she hadn't put the makeup on and just got out there.
No doubt. And also, something we cleared up in this story, friends, is that it's always been said that that Elvis flew. The story has always been that Elvis flew to get peanut butter jelly, you know, these Fool's Gold sandwiches, and come back. The reality is he was actually flying Lisa home. Yeah. This was a stop off on the way home. Yeah. And it doesn't lessen it, but this is true. And he didn't go straight back to Memphis. He went to Louisiana. Yeah. And so that's a very interesting piece of that puzzle. Now I want to ask you another question, and that is, who delivered the sandwiches? Was it somebody from the Fool's Gold place, or was it a policeman?
Well, it was from the Fool's Gold, and I just found out the other day that the person that delivered it, he's passed on. But his son now runs the same business. Right. So that's the story on that.
And so some people say that it was a police officer, you know, that they wouldn't allow them to do it, that the police taxied it out there. So, and they may have brought him out there, but it was not a policeman didn't go in there and deliver and pass out sandwiches. You saw the guy.
As far as I can remember, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So this is a hilarious story that you told me. Tell us about Linda wearing the Indian outfit.
Well, I hadn't seen Linda Thompson in about 2 or 3 weeks, and we were out on the West Coast someplace, and her and Elvis, after a concert, came on the airplane, and every time they would come on, except after a concert, they would always say hi, and then when they departed, she would kiss the two pilots and the flight engineer on the cheek. And so she came in and she says, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was doing some paperwork, and I looked around, and my mouth just dropped. You know, I mean, here was this beautiful blonde gal, tan skin, and an American Native Indian outfit on, and then a feather in her hair. And like I said, my mouth just dropped, and Elvis looked right at me, and I won't use the words he used, but he said, "Ron, don't even think about it." You know, and so then we took off and went someplace, and on landing, they came in the cockpit and thanked us for all, and she kissed the engineer, and then she went to kiss me on the back, or on the cheek, and she whispered in my ear, "Don't give up, Ron, you still got a chance." Yeah, right.
That's funny stuff.
Yeah.